G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. We are over the halfway mark of the 2023 NRL season, and what better way than to do a bit of a preview speaking about, what we've experienced. You've seen my video speaking about, in my opinion, the top 5 game of the season so far. So now, what better way than to speak about what's coming up, what we've seen, and we're joined by one of the best in the business in BKR Sport. Welcome back to the channel, my friend.
Yeah, when was the last time we were here? I can't remember. Obviously, thanks for having me on again, man. When was the last time? Probably would have been last year sometime, yeah?
I feel like it would have been last year. I feel like it would have been a tipping video. But then again, you got to remember when you were a Parramatta Eels supporter for the grand final, that game day vlog where you were an Eels fan for a day.
Yeah, that would have been the last time for the grand final vlog. Yeah. Even though I was over there with the Penrith fans at the end of the game, I did sit with you for the Eels during the game. So at least I got to celebrate something there because as a Titans fan, don't get to celebrate much. So no, that was good. But yeah, look, obviously it's been a big season so far and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, well, a lot on your streams, you mentioned how, close this season, how, especially early on, you mentioned how this is one of the best seasons of rugby league that you've ever seen because there were the close matches at the start, these surprise packets of the year. It's been a competition like no other, so I can't wait to get into it. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to chuck this here. No, I've done that wrong. I'm going to chuck this here. And we're going to speak first about, are the Penrith Panthers still the team to beat? Now, here is the NRL ladder where the Panthers sit in first place with 8 wins and 4 losses. Obviously very different, I think, to the last 2 seasons where they've been, completely dominant. So with the Panthers, the losses that they've had, as you can see there, the Brisbane Broncos won, the Parramatta Eels being the next one. In my opinion, one of the best games of the year, non-biased in the Eels. Of course it is,
yeah. Of course that one is one of the best games of the year for you.
A loss to the Rabbitohs, a team that they have a great record against, where the Rabbitohs, for me, they have become the real deal. They are a massive premiership threat. And then the Panthers. So they haven't lost since round 9, but there are a lot of people, that say you can't beat Penrith. Penrith are just the best. And obviously they did go back-to-back and they're chasing their 3rd straight title. But right now on form, take out the Cleary factor. Obviously Nathan Cleary is currently out for 6 weeks. Are the Penrith Panthers still the team to beat for this title, or is there some other contenders up there?
There's definitely other contenders up there, but the Panthers are absolutely 100% currently the team to beat because every single team has its negatives right now, regardless. Like, obviously, the Rabbitohs, great, they beat the Titans, which was expected of them, but they still gave up 28 points. And although the Titans are a very attacking side, the fact of the matter is that if you're going up against Penrith, you've got to have a much better defense than that because Panthers are incredibly defensive. I know that they beat them 20-18 there, the Rabbitohs, but however, you go back earlier on and the Panthers beat the Rabbitohs as well. So 50-50 in that matchup there. Overall, the Panthers, you can't take it away from them. They're back-to-back premiership winners, plus they had that grand final in 2020, so 3 grand finals in a row, and right now sit top of the table. Now, the only reason they do sit top of the table is because the Broncos haven't had any bye yet, whilst the Panthers have now, I believe, had 2. So the Broncos will go to the top, but overall, yes, there are definitely contenders. I would not genuinely wipe out, if you want me to be technical about it, I wouldn't wipe out 16 teams right now from making the 8. And I wouldn't wipe out, probably about 12 of having a chance of going far if all things start to click. However, if I'm talking about who is the guaranteed spot for the grand final, as much as we can go guaranteed, I would still say the Panthers, yeah.
Yep. And obviously I mentioned there that Nathan Cleary out for 6 weeks. Obviously you mentioned that Brisbane, knocking on that door of finishing first in that minor premiership. So in the next 6 weeks without Nathan Cleary and obviously a few of the Origin stars probably out as well, you look at this lineup that they've got. You've got the Roosters, the Cowboys, the Knights, the Storm, and the Dolphins in those 6 games. Do you think most of these games are winnable, or are we going to see a little bit of some, shaky losses for Penrith that's going to, rise Brisbane to the top?
Oh, well, yeah, it is Origin period, so obviously the Panthers are going to lose players regardless, and that's a really tough time for those big teams. The Broncos experienced it 20, 30 years ago with Origin when they had the plethora of talent in the Origin side. Look, you go there, the Roosters, that's definitely a winnable game for them. Jack Cogger's still a quality player there to come into that 7 role. The Cowboys is, look, the Cowboys, you don't know what you're going to get from them. Obviously, they conceded 66 points to 3 weeks ago to the Tigers, and people forget that because they scored 45 on the Storm. However, that doesn't really necessarily prove anything. You want to see it back to back to back on a frequent basis. But obviously, they come up against the Panthers there. I've got the Panthers to win that one. I've got the Panthers to still beat the Knights there. And then you go down even more. The Storm will be a good game down there in Melbourne. The bye, refresh them, and then they play the Dolphins. So, yeah, look, I don't think it's as scary as people may think. I do think that Kogel should be able to do a bit of the job, but it just comes down to when those players are out, because I don't believe they have the bye next week, and that is Origin week, so they'll lose a lot of players there. Look, they probably actually, to be fair, that's the game they play the Cowboys, so maybe the Cowboys do get up in that one.
So I think they probably go 4-2, maybe 5-1 for that result there. I'm just highlighting this one because obviously no Amy Park due to the Women's World Cup. So this game will be played at Marvel Stadium for you Melbourne fans that want to get there watching. Let's move into the next one now. Obviously, yourself being a Titans fan and myself being an Eels fan.
Luffy.
We are absolutely loving the try-scoring ability of our teams at the moment. So back-to-back titles for Alex Johnston as the top try scorer in the NRL, who currently sits on 12 tries, and Micah Sivo leading here on 15, with Loffy knocking on the door of 13 as well. Jermaine Asako, who's been in great try-scoring form as well, on 13. There's some great candidates here. Do you think that someone is going to take Alex Johnston's record? And do you think it's going to be one of our boys in Loffy and Sivo that are knocking on the door?
What's Johnston's record again? How many did he get?
Top of my head, I can't remember.
I don't personally believe it gets done, but to be fair, and this isn't being, biased here, the Titans score a lot of tries. They just can't, stop the tries coming in. That's why they lose their games. Like, no one can argue. There's no person on the planet that can argue the Titans' attack isn't good. They scored 26 points in 5 straight rounds. 10 years ago, that would have been undefeated. This team this year, 2-3, because of the fact they can't defend. And then you go and have a look at the game against the Rabbitohs, one of the best teams in the comp, where they conceded 28 points still, and Loffy bagged another try there. So you put them up against, maybe this week against the Tigers, Loffy could do something well, get a couple of tries there. He's actually played, I think that's played games with is that played games in the middle?
That's games.
No, sorry, games on the left. Okay, so 15, 13. Yeah, okay. I think that both those guys won't break the record of what Johnson does, but in the same sense, Campbell Graham's been incredible, but as a centre, you wouldn't expect him to keep on going with it, because you do expect the centre to pass it to the winger at times as well, whilst the wingers, if they get the ball, then they're going to put that ball over the line. So if anyone is going to do it, it's between Micah Sivo and Lofiana Khan-Pereira. But I guess if the Titans keep going on with this scoring record, I would like to kind of take it back a little bit so we can focus on defense. But Loffy absolutely has a shout for sure.
Yep. I think there's
Johnston's he's just there as well. Johnston's only 1 try behind him as well. So it's not like Johnston's completely out of it. But Will Candy, I don't think long-term will do it. But Johnston is still within range as well.
Well, I was just about to mention that I don't think these 2 players will do it, but 2 surprising names on this list, number 6 and number 10. I'll start with number 10, obviously the hammer on 10 tries. He had that, 6-game or 5-game record at the start of the season. Absolutely fantastic in Origin as well. Obviously misses those games and opportunities to score during the Origin period. And Will Kennedy, 12 tries is just crazy, out of this world at this time of the season. But can he continue to do it? But yeah, hopefully one of our boys rocks up as the end of the year top try scorer. Will Alex Johnston? We'll find out soon. Let's move into the Dally M contenders now. At the end of round number 12, the Dally M voting went behind closed doors. We had Payne Haas leading the votes on 30. Nathan Cleary, out for an extended time now. This will not be the year that he gets the Dally M. I think Nathan Cleary might have actually been my preseason prediction. I could be wrong, but I think I did have him. Harry Grant in tied 3rd position with Nico Hines, which sets up for a fantastic game this week between the Melbourne Storm and the Cronulla Sharks. And the last one there I'll speak about is Reece Walsh, who's been playing out of his skin, also played in the Maroons jersey just last week. Who can you see picking up the Dally M this year? And is it too early on to look at these points, or will someone within, this top 5 easily secure it at least?
No, I don't think they easily secure it, especially with the fact that the voting system is different this year, where there's separate votes rather than just the 1, 2, 3. I actually think that there's a shout here that's outside that top 5, and that's Cody Walker. with the way that he's playing and the way that the Rabbitohs kind of, revolve around him, especially with Trell out. Cody Walker has been picking up some nice points, and I could definitely see him. Back what round was it again? Was it round 12 when that was taken away? So we've had, two odd rounds there since then, and I think Cody's probably picked up most of the points in both of those. So he's definitely within the equation. Obviously, Payne Haas is fantastic. There's not a great deal to take away from him besides Reece Walsh. So I think that Reece and Payne will actually take points away from each other. Even though they got to round 12 like that, they will take points away. So they've got to hope that a guy like Cody Walker isn't just going bang, bang, bang as he has been. I can't see Cleary doing it. Melbourne Storm, Harry Grant, if the Storm win, he's going to be one of those guys. I don't know about Nico Hines this year, just because people are starting to realise that the Sharkies have been playing very, very flat track bullies for a while now. Last year specifically, and now this year as well. They struggle to beat the big teams, and I just feel like, Harry Grant might be able to take that one away from him. So, look, if I'm going to go with a sneaky one there, I'd say Cody Walker, but I do think Payne Haas probably ends up going on with it. But the three favourites for me would be Payne Haas, Harry Grant, and Cody Walker.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think you've hit the nail on the head there with a few players, missing some games right up the top there. Latrell Mitchell, Nathan Cleary, obviously out for a bit of time, and Cody Walker, 8 points behind. But, if he gets a couple threes, there he is straight in the lead. So I would pretty much agree with you. You've led into my next point, and I'll start with it. The topic of pretenders or contenders. I want to speak about 4 teams here. We've obviously spoken about Penrith, who we all know are a contender there at the top. You've mentioned the Cronulla Sharks. Now, a lot of people very high on the Cronulla Sharks think they're a grand final team, think they're a team that can be there and win the premiership once again this year. I personally have the Cronulla Sharks as pretenders. They haven't been able to beat a top 8 team this year. They've lost to the Dolphins and the Broncos in games that they were both expected to win as well. Obviously, one was at home, one wasn't. The other 4 teams I'll mention to you now, the Broncos, the Sharks, the Storm, and the Rabbitohs. So we'll start off with the Brisbane Broncos, your favourite team or your second team. 10 wins and 4 losses to start the season. I know people had the Broncos, within the top 8 or even within the top 6 this year, but I don't think anybody had the Broncos being that top 4 side that they have become. Where to from the Broncos, and are they pretenders or contenders?
Well, we're not at the point of the season yet where we were waiting for. We're waiting for post this origin period, because they were exactly where they are right now last year, and then completely fell off a cliff after Origin Game 3 and throughout that Origin period. So not even throughout the Origin period, after Origin period. So I've always been waiting until the end. Now, do I think they stay? Of course I do, but I also thought I did kind of call it last year, but this year, surely they stay. Surely they don't let the same thing happen. But again, as a Titans fan, there's a repetitive notion of us falling apart in the second half. Well, what's to say the Broncos don't do the same thing this year? So I do have them as contenders, but I definitely would not be completely surprised if the same thing happened as last year, where they throw it all away when it gets to the crunch. I don't believe the Broncos win the premiership this year, but I definitely think they're good enough to be within the range of improving, and they have been good. They have got the most wins so far this year with 10, comparatively to the Panthers, who are 2 below them, 2 wins in total below them, which means that realistically, the Broncos are actually 4 points above the Panthers right now, if you weigh in all the buys and whatnot. So I think the Broncos are. I think it's impossible to read them for me, because, again, I'm waiting for that post-origin period to really know what they are made of and if they can maintain all the good work they've done in this part of the season, because they did it last year.
I agree with you. I think the Broncos, for me, they're hard to get a read on at the moment, and we're going into that period where we're about to truly find out. But I think, especially in recent weeks, that their grit and their defense of the Broncos, I think it's a massive game at home this week, where they're going in as massive favourites against the Newcastle Knights, and they can show that they can flex their premiership muscle. But I think the 2 away wins they've had recently, both against the Warriors and the Cronulla Sharks, more so probably the Sharks, a team that a lot of people wrote off the Warriors, the Broncos going into that game. But I think that right now, and probably based on that position in the ladder, that they are contenders and can learn from their mistake of last year. Let's move into the 5th place team, the Melbourne Storm. Now, the Melbourne Storm, they sit on 7 wins and 5 losses. So very funny record for the Storm to start the season. Look, the Storm, for me, they've had really inconsistent footy. And it's not just been this year, it's been last year as well. Obviously, last year missing out on the top four, which I had them out of the top four, but I still had them being that quality side. And this year, I believe I had them top two from memory. I think I had them maybe as my premiership pick pre-season, but I'm almost ready to put a big red line through the Storm. They're playing, the game against Brookie was one of the games that they just didn't turn up for as well, with most of their team besides Cameron Munster. And then over the weekend, obviously blown out by the Cowboys. Not many people tipped that one. So it's a really big game against Nicho Hynes and the Sharks this week. And I'm almost ready to say that they're pretenders, but I might just give it one more week.
Yeah, for me, I actually predicted them for 9th preseason. I thought they would miss the 8, and I think that there's still genuine potential with how close this competition is. I don't think they do it now, but I think that it's definitely still not out of the equation, and I'm definitely happy with where I predicted them preseason with that ability, because that's a big ballsy call. That's a bold call to say the Melbourne Storm come 9th position and miss the finals, and that's what I went with. And although they are 5th, they are only 2 points away right now from 9th position and 4 points away from being in the bottom 4. So it's not like it's a crazy notion there. I would never say that the Storm aren't contenders. I still think that if they can get things right, but then again, if every team can get things right, I don't like the players outside of the spine. I think the spinal players are great, but this is the reason why I had them in 9th preseason, is that their back line is not as strong as it once was. Their spine's still the best, if not one of the best in the competition. And then you go to their back row and it's like, it's fine, and the lock is fine, but it's nothing special. So I'm going to say I would, if I'm going to go with pretenders or contenders means I believe they can win the comp. I don't think they do. So I'm going to put pretenders for that very reason.
Yep, I agree with you there on that one. The last one to speak about is the South Sydney Rabbitohs, a team sitting in 3rd. I believe you had the Rabbitohs winning the comp. Am I wrong? You did have the Rabbitohs winning the comp. They currently sit in 9 wins and 5 losses. Back-to-back losses against the Parramatta Eels and then against, I forget who they played just last week. You can remind me.
The Raiders.
The Raiders. Obviously, they played a little bit under strength there against the Raiders, but picking up the losses and then beating your boys, the Titans. But you know what? They were down at halftime, which I know is a factor for the Titans, but it's a very different. The Rabbitohs lately, especially that game against the Tigers as well, where they may have kept them to 0, but it really took a long time for them to, fire in that game. But for me, I've got them as contenders. They're missing Latrell Mitchell as well at the moment, which is a big factor. You mentioned Cody Walker playing out of his skin. I think they've learned a lot from, these prelim exits that they've had in recent years, and they look like a team that just wants to go further and does not want to give up in those games. I think the biggest one is that win against Penrith. It was a grand final in 2021. Who's not to say it could be a grand final this year? Probably their best win of the season. And for me, I've got the Rabbitohs as massive contenders in the back half of the year.
Yeah, I have them as contenders for sure. I had them as my preseason favourites. I actually had them in the grand final alongside the Sharks, who I'll speak about in a second. But with the Rabbitohs, I don't look at that Titans game and read too heavily into it for the Rabbitohs, simply because the Titans have done that every single game this season, bar 1 or 2. So it's not necessarily a Rabbitohs thing I'd look into. It would be more a Titans thing. But with all the other games, the Rabbitohs definitely have shown that they have the ability. They are really good at that comeback, or their ability of not giving in when the going does get tough. The Panthers game is a prime example of that in the second one. And even in the first game against Penrith in round 2 over there in Penrith actually were a much better team than the Rabbitohs in that game. However, the scoreline in the end was only a 6-point game, and the Rabbitohs had a chance right on the siren to tie that game up and send it to extra time, even though I believe that Penrith, the way the game played out, should have won by a lot more. So that right there shows me that the Rabbitohs are a good enough team. They've obviously got enough points in them. Obviously need to hold in that defense a little bit more than giving up 28 points to the Titans. But yeah, they're definitely contenders 100%. And they've got the second best points differential as well in the comp. And that's it's only by about 15, 20 odd. But fact of the matter is that they're the only ones even remotely close to the Panthers on 147.
There you go. You said you wanted to mention the Sharks here. I spoke about my thoughts on the Sharks. I'll let you speak about the Sharkies there.
Yeah, the Sharks for me are still contenders. I know that I wouldn't be saying that they are a favourite by any means at the moment. They've got a lot of weakness in the defense. I don't think that they're anywhere near as good as what I thought they were pre-season. And again, it comes down to the flat track bully kind of syndrome that we've spoken about. So I think that they are still contenders, but there is a lot of issues that, I would be preferring to side with a Rabbitohs or a Panthers or even a Broncos. Even though that one game, I know that was down there in Sydney on Saturday where the Sharkies did lose to the Broncos, I still don't know. The Sharks could still beat Brisbane when they play each other again. I think that's more of a 50-50 matchup battle there. And if they play each other in the finals, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Sharks get knocked out in straight sets this year, but there is definitely worrying concerns about them. But I still have them as contenders for sure because we're only halfway through the season.
Well, let's speak about the top 8. Obviously, the halfway of the season, this is our top 8. The Panthers, the Broncos, the Rabbitohs, the Sharks, the Storm, the Canberra Raiders, the Warriors, and the Dolphins. So, look, I want to speak to you about this battle for the top 8. You mentioned that, look, it's so close down here in the bottom, but I think between 5 teams to me, fighting for that spot in the top 8. So we'll go through it one by one, but I'll mention them. For me, I've got the Warriors, the Raiders, the Roosters, who there's panic button all over them at the moment. The Dolphins, the surprise of the year, who we all thought were going to be, 17, 16. And I guess they still can, but very almost impossible.
No,
and the
Dragons are going to get that, bro.
And the Parramatta Eels, who, things are going from bad to worse. And it was a really bad start to the year, but they've started to, play a bit better in some of those games. So we'll first go to the Warriors. The Warriors, for me, have been one of the biggest surprises of the year under their new coach as well. They've been playing much better footy than previous years. They recruited really well, not only this year, but in recent years. And I kind of said that maybe the Warriors won't be that good this year, but going into next year they could, which they've shown that they are. Do you think the Warriors will finish in the top 8 or outside the top 8?
I still believe that they will miss the top 8 just about 9 or 10. I don't think that that game against the Broncos where they lost to a baby Broncos team, they butchered a lot of tries and that showed, I guess, their weakness in being able to completely finish it off. And then they obviously had those idiots in Napier who ruined the game for them as well. However, I just feel like there are teams around that will get there in front of them, even though the Warriors have been fun to watch this season. I know that everyone's going to come out and say, like, I think the Warriors do. And I think a lot of the time people are saying that that's because they want the Warriors to make it rather than they think the Warriors will make it. Because I can name benefits from a few other teams below that I believe will be able to go over the top of this Warriors team. Now, they are a hard team to play at home, but again, the Broncos did beat them there at home with a weakened side. Yes, the Dolphins lost them. That was their first ever international trip as well. So I think that, look, the Warriors will be competitive this year, but I think that there are other teams that will come over the top of them.
What about that team in 6? Another surpriser of the year. I think a lot of people might have had them, in the lower end of the 8, but in the top 6, it's a crazy position. The Canberra Raiders, obviously they made the top 8 last year. One of those teams where they start the year really slow, warming up. Do you see the Raiders making the top 8 in 2023?
Yeah, I think the Raiders make the 8. I didn't have them pre-season making the 8, but it's because I kind of think the Raiders are a bit of a team. Like, I don't think there's anything extravagant. I think they've got great forwards, but I also think those forwards can clock off at times. But I would say that at this point, I'm happy enough to say they'll make the 8 over the teams below them for sure. Yeah, but they're not going to win the comp by any means. I have no.
Their for and against is a big issue,
it's
though.
Dreadful.
Their for and against, as you can see there, minus 49. If they do lose their, say, next 2 games, which massive game this week for Jared Croker's 300, then they could drop to, that 9th position.
Well, it just shows the Raiders are in 6th position with minus 49 and the Titans are in 13th position with minus 49. So it tells you a great deal. And it's also, you look at that minus 49 for the Raiders, you even go down to the Tigers who are minus 43. So the Tigers are in 16th position right now, have a better for and against than the team in 6th position. That tells you everything you need to know there. And they're not a great deal in front of the Cowboys then. We all know how their season has gone. Even the Roosters are on minus 66. That's worse than the 14th place Cowboys, and that's also worse than the 16th place Tigers. Can we go have a look at the Dragons for a second? Because I don't think theirs is too bad either. Minus 67. So they're only 18 above last place right now in points differential. So the points differential for me is incredible this year. That's what benefits your Eels. However, we all know with the Dylan Brown situation now that's going to cause a little bit of a ruckus, and that could be a big issue for you guys. Yep. So that's a big worry. But overall, I still think the Raiders get it done, but it's definitely not going to be convincing. And I don't think that I wouldn't be surprised if they missed out either.
All right, let's move into one that you just mentioned, the Sydney Roosters on -66 on just 6 wins for the year. A team that, a lot of people had this team winning the comp, said it was their year. They recruited Brandon Smith. And, the Roosters, the preseason hype is there every year. And I just wasn't buying it this year. And I was absolutely right. I still had them top 8 for sure, but they're not as good as everyone made them out to be. Do you still think they find a way to make the finals? Because I really don't know. And if they do, I cannot see them finishing higher than 7th this year.
I actually don't think they do. I don't think they make the finals. I had them in 5th preseason, and I got slaughtered on my channel because I said that. Everyone was like, are they going to come 1st or 2nd? There's no way they don't finish top 4. And right now, there's Buckley's chance that they finish above a lot of those teams to that top 4 position. And they're even lucky to be where they are due to the fact that they're on -66 points differential, which, as we found out just then, is the 3rd worst. Actually, scroll down a second. I think that's the 3rd worst, isn't it? Or 2nd worst? Yeah, 3rd worst points differential in the entire competition, and yet they're in 9th position. So can they make it? Yes, but I never rated the signing of Brandon Smith. I never thought that he suited the Roosters system. I always said that he suits the Storm and they used him well, but go to the Roosters, and I don't think it would. And obviously that's what's happened here. And then they've got halves issues. They've got backline issues. Suaalii clearly doesn't want to be there. And they've got forward issues. So for me, no, I don't believe they make it. And that's a big call still. But there's a reason why they're on -66 points differential and also struggled to beat the Doggies on the weekend.
I didn't put Manly in this list. They're in 10th. I definitely think they can play finals. But I want to speak about, the Broncos fans wearing Dolphin jerseys, the Dolphins in position number 8.
Yeah, they're just Broncos fans in disguise, 100%.
Do you think that the Dolphins can truly play finals, or are we starting to see what we thought? Because throughout the season, I've started to believe in the hype, but I really am starting to see the Dolphins, go down that ladder. And I, unfortunately for the Dolphins fans, think that they will miss out on the finals, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe the Dolphins miss out in the finals. I've been maintaining it the entire way through the season. They're picking up wins and at points. That's fine. Their points differential is not dreadful. However, this is the part of the season now where this team is going to really be tested. You can play on the hype all you like for the first half, but the second half is when shit starts to get real. And right now it is starting to get real. And the Dolphins just got pumped by the Warriors over there a week after the Warriors just got, beaten by the baby Broncos. So no, I think the Dolphins are okay. I don't think they make the 8 though, and I could see them finishing. I can genuinely see them finishing around that 12-13 area.
You know what? I wasn't going to mention it, and I mentioned it before about not mentioning it, but I'm going to mention the Sea Eagles. And the reason I'm going to do it is because of that draw with Newcastle. Do you think that the Manly Newcastle draw factor, having that extra point advantage, is going to put the Sea Eagles in the top 8?
I don't think either Manly or the Knights make it. And I didn't have them preseason, and I still don't have them now. That is a massive benefit. Most of this season, I've actually been saying, ever since that draw, I've been saying at games with my mates at the Titans games, like, I want to draw. Like, I want to draw because the draw benefits this table this year so drastically because, as you can see there, the Warriors and Dolphins, let's assume the Warriors, Dolphins, and Roosters lose this week and Manly and the Knights win. They both actually go into the top 8 there, even though they've got, the points differential of Manly isn't horrific comparatively, but it's still worse than the Dolphins and also worse than the Warriors there. So, yeah, a draw is very beneficial, but no, I don't. I don't think you're going to mention them, but I genuinely still believe that my team makes the top 8. I do believe the Titans make it.
Absolutely a chance for your team. Let's speak about my team because I have got them there. They are a team that have, made finals consistently, especially in recent years. But as I mentioned pre-season, I had them in 8th because, a lot of losses. Marata Niokore, Isaiah Papali'i, Reid Marnie, definitely a very new combination this year. And almost starting the season 0-4 to turning around the season to 6 wins and 7 losses. I think it's a better result than people would have predicted, after those first couple of weeks. Do you have the Parramatta Eels in your top 8?
I did until Dylan Brown's situation. I did. I thought that you guys were still... Well, I had your 4th preseason, and I thought that the Eels were unlucky with their draw early on and lost a lot of those games. And then now we'll find it a lot easier. However, now you've lost one of the best players in your team, and you've already lost Jacob Arthur to Manly. So you don't have that direct replacement there. Who is your 5'8" now?
So I'll speak more about this on the channel, guys, but I believe that Brad will either play Dejan Arce at 5'8", former Cowboy, but there is this, talk of Simonson or Russell going to fullback with Gutherson. Yes, with Gutherson to move in the halves. It's been talked about for a long time that if one of our stars were, injured within the halves, that was the plan. We'll wait and see. There's nothing official yet, but that is something we could see happen.
So, yeah, look, I think that with Dylan Brown, I was absolutely saying you make the top 8. But without Dylan Brown, I think that you lose a lot. I think that he is a significant part of that team. And, yeah, him going will be detrimental to the team personally.
All right, last topic that I do want to speak about is...
No way you are. No way you are not. We are going straight to the Titans, and we are explaining exactly how this team can still make the 8 here, all right?
Let's do it. Why can the Gold Coast Titans turn their season around?
Well, okay, do you think the Eels can make it?
No.
No,
and okay, I've said that for recent weeks. I think that they can. I definitely think that they can, but I don't personally have them there. I have Parramatta finishing in around 9th or 10th. I've had it for a few weeks now. And look, I think the Manly factor is huge as well. If Manly can win some games, which they were winning at home, having that extra point is a massive advantage. A team like the Dolphins dropping out of the 8. Mm-hmm. I think the Warriors just might make it. I think most of the teams below the 8 right now, I don't think they'll play, but I could see Manly doing it.
All right, so the reason why I was kind of hoping you say yes, because I would have been like, okay, well, because we beat you a couple of weeks ago, so that means that you would have to think that we could have a chance too. The reason being, the Titans in the first half are undefeated. They're currently top of the table right now. Second half, they're fallen away completely. Now, if they can sort out that second half, if they can find a way to find that extra gear and just maintain that second half rather than capitulating, this team is a really good team. Like, they are a genuinely good team. They have put away every single team in the first half so far this season. Now, no one's hiding from that, but the fact of the matter is that we've also had only 4 home games. We've had 4 home games in the first 15 rounds of the season, right? We have 8 out of our last 13 games at home. We've also had AJ Brimson out. We've had Sammy Verrills out, who was the key signing to actually change this team from what we were last year into this year. He went down halfway through the first that Dragons game in round 2. So he's back now. We've been lacking Jimmy Jolliffe. He's coming back in. We've got AJ Brimson coming back from injury. We've got all our players that have been out for the majority of this first part of the season back, plus the home games. Yes, that was a bad loss to the Rabbitohs, but the fact of the matter is we still scored 28 points past them. We are only 2 points out of the 8 right now, and our for and against is better than the Roosters. Our for and against is also better than the Raiders in 6th position, or same as Raiders there, and they're not far off everybody else. So to completely wipe out the Titans, Gus Gould's even giving the Cowboys a chance of winning the competition this year. So if he's giving the Cowboys a chance, then you can't say that the 13th place Titans, who are only 2 points out of the 8, with that gigantic amount of attack, and if they can find that defensive side in the second half, this team is going to cause some dangerous problems for other teams. And I back him in 100%. I back him in 100%.
Let's hope. I hope for you, mate. I hope. All right. The last thing I want to speak about, which will go from bottom to top, and it is, I have obviously told you this topic here, but it is a bit difficult. So, look, if we mention a player that you think is out of form, this is just our opinion, kind of, on the clock here. But throughout the season so far, every club's current form player in your opinion. Start off with the Dragons. I'm going Jack de Belin, almost knocking on the door of a New South Wales Blues jersey. He's been in form for a struggling side. Last year it was Ben Hunt who, was knocking on that Dally M with some of the performances he had. But Jack de Belin has just been outstanding for me for the Dragons this season.
Yeah, there's not many for the Dragons, so I'll go Jack de Belin as well. Ben Hunt's Ben Hunt, but in the same sense, he wants out. So I'd go Jack de Belin.
What about you for the West Tigers? It's a tough one for the Tigers. Obviously, a tough start to the year. In recent weeks, crazily, you would say Luke Brooks, but I think consistently for the season, I think probably Stefano Utuikamanu, another player who's probably, knocking on that Origin jersey. Is he going to get it? Maybe not. Maybe. He was, I believe, 19th man going into the game. But, I'd probably say Stefano with an honourable mention to the new kid on the block, Jareem Buller. Yeah,
Dream Buller absolutely has to be a shout-out. But for me, my favourite player to watch the Tigers this year has definitely been Johnny Bateman. I thought Bateman's been fantastic in that back row since coming in. And, we play them tomorrow or today when this comes out. We play the Tigers. And I'm nervous for him because he's been really fun to watch this season, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with John Bateman.
Let's move into the Bulldogs. I got to watch them for the second time this year the other day, but they obviously had a lot of players out earlier in the year with injury who they've now gotten back. You could have said Viliami Kikau at this point, but no Viliami Kikau for this season for them. Early on, I probably would have said, Jacob Carraz. He was fantastic for them. But for me, I'm going with Jake Averillo. He's become, in my opinion, he's become one of the best centers in the game currently. He's been so consistent in that role at the Dogs in, again, a struggling side, massive shining light. Jake Averillo, probably my player from the Bulldogs this year.
I'll go Max King because Max King is a warrior. Like that guy just does not go. Like he had a broken eye socket or whatever it was and continued to play in that game and then play the next week. That guy is a warrior and he's exactly what the Dogs, are after. They all go on about this dogs of war mentality. Like they're still down there in the bottom four. So there's not a great deal of dogs of war mentality. But if you're to look at a mentality there that is similar to it, you'd be looking at a guy like Max King who has put every bit of his soul into this club after going from the Titans to the Melbourne Storm and now to the Dogs where he has been doing well. Now, in recent weeks, he hasn't been at his peak. But overall, this season, I love what Max King's doing.
I'll let you go next because I really need to have a good think about this one. The Cowboys, obviously a really struggling start to the year and, a lot of players from the Queensland Maroons that were going into that game a little bit out of form. So who do you think's been that shining light of the Cowboys?
I wouldn't say there has been a shining light per se, but I would say that if I was to be confident about who I have liked to watch most this season and has probably played the most better games, I'd probably still go with Drinkwater there. When he does play, he has still been quite quality. I know that obviously that game against the Broncos where he got suspended really caused an issue in his season, but overall, in a team with not many bright lights right now, I would go out of my way to say probably Drinkwater when he's playing.
I'm going to go with Reece Robson. I think he was also one of the best players at the Cowboys last year as well. But I still think he is such a quality number 9, so crucial to their attack. If you take him out for a few weeks, I reckon they'd struggle to go downfield the way that they do against some team. I guess I'd be rude not to let you go first here. The Gold Coast Titan.
No, I want you to go first. I want you to go first here.
You want me to go first here? Well, I think that... based on all-rounder, it's tough. You could say Loffy because of all the tries. You could say Sami has been... I think Sami. I think that as good as your forward pack has been, the try ability and the tackle breaks, especially per game consistently, Philip Sami has worked himself into that jersey and not getting dropped, not getting, changed into the centres, anything, just staying there. I would say for me, it's Philip Sami.
I love that. I love that because obviously most people would go straight to Tino, and I think that Tino is an obvious one. I think I am going to go Dave Fafita, though. I think that last year, obviously, he copped a ridiculous amount of criticism. I see him week in, week out. I know, the nonsense that he has to go through there, and he didn't even have that bad of a season last year. It was just a club had a down year, and he wasn't scoring as many tries as he did the year before. And this year, I think he scored maybe 1 or 2 tries, but the fact of the matter is his whole game has been rounded much better defensively, attacking wise. He's just been incredible. He's the best back row in the competition right now. It's not actually even arguable on the stats. It's not. So Dave Fafita has stood up beyond no means past last year's nonsense and absolutely goes to Dave.
Massive. Can't wait to see him in game 2 in a couple of weeks. My boys, the Parramatta Eels. I personally believe that one of our new boys has locked down a jersey for a long time to come, was knocking on the door of a Maroons, maybe not debut, but Maroons camp. And I believe that our best player has been Jermaine Hopgood. Now, I think, again, with stats, it shows makes more tackles than both Brendan Hands and Josh Hodgson per game as a lock. Big running meters, big offload ability. With Nathan Brown being forced out of the side and Ryan Madison being either in the back row or via the bench, I think Jermaine Hopgood has made that jersey his, and he's my Parramatta Eels player of the year so far.
Yeah, I'd 100% say Jermaine Hopgood. I don't think it's debatable.
There you go. The Newcastle Knights, probably...
don't think... Wait, we're gone?
I was going to say definitely recently, I would say Dominic Young, especially in the last, 6 weeks. But you got to remember that he had, 2 or 3 games in reserve grade before he came back to this form. But I also think it's a really weird thing to say that Tyson Gamble has been outstanding for the Knights. He just didn't fit in at Brisbane, wasn't playing to his best. And I think the team has really gotten around his playing ability. So I would say it's between Dominic Young and Tyson Gamble over at Newcastle.
I think Tyson Campbell originally, but I think the last couple of weeks, for the last month or so, he's definitely been a little bit out of form. He's been completely down. But outside of that, he's been good. But then again, on the flip side of that, you could go and have a look at the beginning part of the season for Lachlan Miller and give him a shout there. But I think that it's always just going to be, one of that Newcastle forward pack. And, Tyson Frizzell has been fantastic. Frizzell's been fantastic as per usual. That's why he's in the New South Wales side, and I take Frizzell.
Let's talk about the Sea Eagles. It's between two names for me. It is a tough battle. One player did get to play Origin. The other one just fell short, which I don't know why. But I'm going to mention both names. First off, Hamal Olakalatu. Look, he's been really good for a few years now, but I think this season has absolutely been his in the back row. I'd look forward to Olakalatu versus Fafita, a Titans-Manly game coming up later in the year if there is one, because it'll be great.
Well, we already played. We already played this year and we beat them.
Do you play again?
No, I don't think we played at Seabus. No,
maybe at the finals. I will go with Daly Cherry Evans. I dead set think that he has had some up and down seasons over the years, and I just think this season is absolutely one of his seasons. I'm surprised that he's not up there with some Dally M points, but I guess Manly is a little bit lower end of the ladder. But between Olakalatu, DCE, I'm going to give it slightly to DCE.
Yeah, I think Hamali Kawatu has been good, but I also would 100% say Cherry Evans simply because a lot of people discredit him and disrespect him for a lot of reasons and justifiable reasons based on his past. However, I think that limits their ability to enjoy watching him play and what he does for Manly. So I think that, this season he has still been very solid. And, I also would like to say Jake Chaboyevich when he's fit and healthy because that guy is just a workhorse on defense. So for me, it's between Jake Chaboyevich and Cherry Evans, but I will lean with Cherry as well due to the fact that he just keeps turning up despite being discredited, despite for valid reasons, but still, he's a great player.
Last team that is from with outside the top 8, the Sydney Roosters. For me, I think it's Luke Keary. I think Luke Keary, he's been through all that injury. He's been very consistent this season. I can't remember Luke Keary having, more than 2 bad games, if not 1 bad game. I think Luke Keary has been the Roosters' best player this year, and I think he'll be getting that medal in a few months with the Roosters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a player, man, because this team has been just superbly underwhelming. Look, if anything, I would go with. I'm going to go with Jackson Borlo because he's been much better than when he was. Yes, but the fact of the matter is, I would say for the most part, like he was at least scoring tries, and he was one of their better players earlier on in the season. And last year at the Rabbitohs, he was just dreadful, and I thought that he was doing well, and then he's kind of gone back there now. But I just can't see anyone for this Roosters team standing up because there's such high expectations for them because of what people say preseason. So I guess you can go with Keary, but I don't think Keary's been that great anyway. And then you go to the forwards, and I'm scrolling through the forwards in my head, and I just can't see anybody really there that has been spectacular. So I'll go with someone who at least scored a few tries earlier on in the season.
Let's move into that team that's sitting in 8th position. We both don't think they'll be there for too much longer. I think you'll agree with me. You might not, but I think Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, he missed those opportunities to play at fullback or a starting kind of player at the Cowboys. After a while, he became that player coming off the bench and was definitely wasted. And he's shown the NRL that he's not only one of the fastest in the game, but definitely for a few years to come at least, that he can be a very good fullback for this new team and maybe even for other teams in the future.
Yeah, Hamiso is definitely the one. He is the one, but Jermaine Sarko is up there as well for, improving himself from his previous years. And also Jerry Marshall-King, who came from the Doggies. He has been doing some great things, even though obviously he's been injured. So, yeah, I'd go with Hamiso as well because I doubted him. I thought that he was okay, but he can be quite lazy at times, but overall the quality that he possesses, if he's not lazy at times, he can be one of the best players in the game.
New Zealand Warriors, really tough one because I think, they've had a lot of new recruits that have been really good. Charles Nickel-Klokstad has been good. Sean Johnson's been absolutely outstanding as well and had some man of the match performances. But for me, someone who, I heard the name a few times, but now the name is starting to become in my head at just how good he is. I'm going to go with Jackson Ford. he has made the back row position his at that side. He hasn't forced his way out of it. He's been very consistent in all those games. Jackson Ford at the moment is the Warriors player of the year, in my opinion.
I'm going to go with Sean Johnson because before this year started, he was completely out of form. People were saying, okay, it's time to retire, time to move on, but let's go with Volkman and Tamari Martin and whatnot. And Sean Johnson should just kind of have an active role in the club, but it's time to move on there. And he's obviously come out and didn't do well in the first couple of games of the season, but then really moved up. And people keep saying Prime SJ. If you think this is Prime SJ, you didn't watch Prime SJ. You have no idea what you're talking about. He's nowhere close to Prime SJ, but he's a different SJ. He's a different Sean Johnson. And the way that he's played with this Warriors team has been really, really good for the most part of the season. There's still down games from here and there due to age. But yeah, I've got to give it to Sean Johnson for his bounce back factor from having a couple of poor years, but, turning it on for the Warriors and potentially putting them into the top 8.
Bit tough here for the Raiders. I know they're 6th on the ladder, but I still don't think all of their players are performing at their best. There was a fantastic game the other day from Jamal Fogarty, but I don't think he's been their player of the year. I will probably give this one to Hudson Young. One of the best back rowers in the comp last year. He's taken that form straight into this year and obviously earned himself a Blues jersey with some of those performances as well. Be interesting to see if you have a different pick.
I would personally actually go with Sebastian Chris, who's been the fullback. He's a centre by trade and has been thrust into that fullback role due to the injury to Xavier Savage, and then withheld Xavier Savage from that position. And then Xavier Savage also couldn't get into the team because of Albert Hapawade. But Sebastian Chris has been, fantastic for his standards in that fullback role, considering that he is in another position. And I've liked what Sebastian's been doing at the Raiders this year. I don't think there's been any kind of massive standouts as a reason for that minus 49 points differential. They have gone that little run, but I'll go with Chris, despite the fact that he's injured right now. He's been pretty solid throughout the most part of the year.
Good pick there. Obviously, the Storm have been without one of the biggest stars in the game, arguably, in Ryan Pappenhausen, who we might have said, who knows, could be here. But for me, it's been Cameron Munster. I can't argue otherwise. Do you disagree?
I don't think there's anybody else. Like, Harry Grant is up top near the top of the Dally M leaderboard, but I still think that every game Munster is just the guy to take over. I still have him currently as the best player in the game. I know that the Cleary's there. I've got him trajectory-wise potentially to be the best player of all time. But right this very second at the Storm, Cameron Munster, when he lights it up, he lights it up. If you're going to look at Harry Grant light up a game and look at Cameron Munster lighting up a game, I guarantee you that you're looking this way and not that way. You're looking at what Munster's doing, and that's what he does not every game, but have a large majority of games. And if you put him into the fullback role, he does it too. You put him into the 5'8", halfback, you probably can do as well. Everywhere he goes, he kills it. So, Munster.
The Sharks one's interesting, right? You immediately think Nico Hines, who I think you'll say. I'm going to say I think Nico Hines has been awesome, but he's had some games where he's gone missing. There's one player that I think has just been so consistent in that side. I'm going to go Britton Nakora. Britton Nakora has been the Cronulla Sharks' best player this season for mine.
I disagree. I've got Will Kennedy.
Good pick.
I've got Will Kennedy. Will Kennedy's been safe. He's been reliable. He's never had that X factor, but yet he's scored a majority of their tries, a large amount of their. Actually, he's scored the most tries, I believe, for their team this season, above their fullbacks and their centers and their wingers and whatnot. So I'll go Will Kennedy there.
Good pick. I may have forgotten him while we were going on, brainstorming here. Let's move on to the South Sydney Rabbitohs. We spoke about it in recent weeks. It's definitely been Cody Walker. I think arguably you can say that Cody Walker has probably been the best player for them this season as well. You could throw Latrell Mitchell in there for the start, but I think he's always been up and around there. So
I think you've forgotten someone, man. I think you've forgotten someone.
Oh, I have forgotten someone. The player who was snubbed of Origin, Campbell Graham. You've just put it back into my head. Campbell Graham.
Yeah, that's who I'm going to go. I'm going Campbell Graham. I think he's been unreal this year. He's the best defensive centre in the comp, in my opinion, and has a great attack on him as well, scoring a lot of tries. So, yeah, Cody's been fantastic the recent couple of weeks. Trell's actually copped a lot of criticism this year. However, has turned on games at points. But I think that Campbell Graham has been consistent in every single game he's had this year. Has slowed down a little bit in recent weeks, but I believe that's because of a sternum injury. But overall, Campbell Graham is for me, the player in that Rabbitohs team for sure.
Brisbane Broncos, Payne Haas. Any disagreements?
Reece Walsh.
Over Payne Haas.
Payne Hart. Well, the thing is that what we're doing here is we're kind of like saying who's been the best player this season or the most impactful this season. I think that Payne Haas has been absolutely massive, but I don't think that you can discredit what Reece Walsh has done in that fullback department, because I think Origin provided a lot of perspective on the fact that he has improved his defense. Without that Origin game one performance, I don't believe that the whole season really comes back into I guess perspective, because he's not been known for his defensive efforts. And although he's had kind of points where it's been a little bit weak during the first 14, 13 rounds or whatever before Origin, the fact of the matter is that the Broncos weren't conceding a great deal of tries through him. And then Origin came and it showed that he can actually do it. So for me, I think Reece Walsh has been a great inclusion, because although Tamari Martin was great, it wasn't what Reece Walsh can do for 20 minutes and lighting up. And Reece Walsh is a 20-minute player on attack. He's not an 80-minute player. He's a 20-minute player on attack. However, when he has that 10, 20-minute spurt, no one can stop him.
Penrith Panthers, last one to talk about. Now, I think it has to be Nathan Cleary. I can't really think, like, there are a lot of stars within that team, but I think even in some of their losses that Nathan Cleary's been very, very good throughout the season.
To the standards that I have Cleary at, I wouldn't. To the standards that I have him at, I would not say he's been their best. I would go as far to say on a consistent level, it still is Dylan Edwards. But someone that I have really enjoyed watching this year is Scotty Sorensen in the back row. I think he's been fantastic as well. Cleary is their best player. Don't get me wrong in that regards at all. However, I just think that Dylan Edwards is so safe and consistent. And if I want to see someone who's kind of come out of the nowhere and just exploded over kind of the last season and a half, really, was actually has been Scotty Sorensen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. We hope you have enjoyed this NRL 2023 mid-season review. It's been fantastic to have BKR Sport back on the channel. Make sure you go check out his channel. What's your next big milestone?
25,000. We're about 1,300, 1,400 away from that. So I think that, maybe just after. To be fair, we might be able to get there by Origin Game 2, I would say, or Origin Game 3, definitely for sure. So we're definitely on our way there and pumping along. We've got the new Gold Coast Frontline podcast as well now with Clarkie's Rugby League column, where we go every single week and we talk to the boys, we talk about all the games and our preview review of each game for the Gold Coast Titans. So yeah, if you're a Titans fan or want to know more about the ins and outs of the club, jump across there. But yeah, man, we're cracking on. And then we get to the finals where the Titans are going to win the comp.
We'll be back on the channel soon, where the Parramatta Eels will defeat the Titans at CommBank Stadium in just a few weeks. So looking forward to that.
Oh, wait, we do play you guys again. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes, we do. Not long. Looking forward to it. But it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you for speaking about the season, and obviously good luck to your team throughout the rest of the year. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. We hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. If you think we've had, you disagree with something or you agree, you want to just comment your best players, go ahead. But that's it from us. And thank you for watching this video, guys.